Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Would love to hear who's joining us, where you're joining from. Let us know in the comments section. My name is Laura. I am joining from Cincinnati, Ohio tonight. Not sure if there's any other Cincinnatians in the crowd. If so, I'd be very excited, but let us know where you're all joining from. We're so happy to have you. I will go ahead and start kicking us off here as it is 7 o'clock Eastern. So as I mentioned, my name is Laura. I am the marketing manager here at Wanderful. And in case there's anyone out there who has not joined our membership yet, Wanderful is an international collective of travelers and travel creators who are on a mission to make travel better for all women around the world. We connect our community both online and in person. We have a thriving online membership network. We have local chapter events in 50 cities around the world and counting. We have global summits. We have small group trips. We're also the creators of the WITS Travel Creator Summit. And right now we are offering a 14-day free trial of our membership, no credit card required. I know you'll love it. All you have to do is sign up at sheswanderful.com/join. And look forward to seeing you there. While we connect women travelers together, we also focus on amplifying voices of women and underrepresented people in the travel industry. And ultimately, we are striving toward making this industry one that is more equitable, inclusive, and thoughtful. So with that in mind, I want to thank all of you who are here for this incredibly important conversation. I will be introducing our panelists momentarily. I want to first draw your attention to the Q&A that we will hold at the end of tonight's panel discussion. We'll save 10 to 15 minutes. Would love to hear from you. Please feel free to leave any questions that you have for our panelists in the comment section throughout tonight's presentation, and we will address as many of those as possible. So before I introduce our panelists, to set the stage a little bit for tonight's conversation, statistically speaking, 1 in 8 women in the United States will develop breast cancer. It is the world's most prevalent cancer. And more than that, the racial disparities that Black women face are unconscionably stark, with Black women facing greater obstacles to cancer prevention, detection, treatment, and survival. So in recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we have brought together some remarkable women in the Wanderful community whose lives have been touched by breast cancer and who have now committed their lives to speaking out about it and about the power of healing through community and through travel. As they know, breast cancer can change you not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally too. And they have all found the healing power of travel to cope, recharge, and renew the spirit. So without further ado, I am excited to introduce you to Alicia Tamby. Alicia is the co-founder and board chair of Fight Through Flights, a nonprofit supporting the healing of Black women living with breast cancer, as well as survivors, through free travel and wellness experiences. The organization was co-founded by Alicia and her sister Esther to honor their sister's legacy, who passed away from breast cancer in 2019. Alicia is also a licensed attorney and works in tech as head of international organizations for connectivity and inclusion at Meta, which is an incredibly cool job title. In her role, she leads Meta's connectivity efforts with international organizations across the globe to advance digital inclusion and affordable and reliable internet access initiatives. She also serves on Meta's Global Black Women Leadership Team. She's passionate about all things social impact and travel. She's been to over 40 countries. She has a travel company called Lux A Travels, and you can learn more about Alicia and her organization. Everything's at Fight Through Flights. Alicia, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Of course. Thank you.
Awesome. And next, it is my pleasure to introduce Biza Miles. Biza is a freelance writer and travel blogger at Miles to Travel. That's Miles with a Y. She created her blog in 2016 after finishing treatment for breast cancer. After receiving her 5-year survivorship plan, she decided to create her own that included travel and adventures. She called it her survivor's list. Since then, Visa has visited over 10 countries. She's hiked Mount Kilimanjaro and Salcante Trail in Peru. She's walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and she remains 6 years cancer-free as she continues to add travels to her survivor's list. She's also an angel advocate for the Tiger Lily Foundation to help educate and empower women of color affected by breast cancer. And you can learn more about all of these amazing efforts. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Visa.
Thank you.
Awesome. And our third panelist that I will introduce this evening is Dee Burrell. Dee is a breast cancer survivor who supports other women who have been diagnosed through her motivational workshops, speaking engagements, and media appearances. She advocates for women's health, traveling worldwide to empower women with her personal story. She is the author of the book, Open Up the Doors and Let Me In, and the co-author of Living Your Vision and Purpose. And you can learn more about Dee as well. We can share all of these links throughout tonight's event. Dee, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Wonderful. So now that we are all here, first and foremost, how are you all? And where are you joining us from?
I'm doing great. I'm joining you from Washington, D.C. In our office. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to be here. Really, really excited. Just honestly, briefly, I love the WITS community, and she's wonderful, more so because last year you guys had donated your dues to our organization, and it really meant a lot. And we came to the award show and the summit, and it was just beautiful seeing everyone together. So I'm just appreciative of this community. And I just remember this time last year being so grateful to this organization.
Thank you. We're grateful to you.
I am in Northwest Indiana, right outside Chicago, and I'm doing great.
So glad to hear that.
I'm doing well, very grateful to be a 16-year breast cancer survivor. And I'm joining you today on travel. I'm actually in LA visiting my granddaughter for the first time at UCLA. So I'm actually sitting in a hotel lobby today, but I would not miss this for anything. Thank you so much for all that you do for Wanderful. It is an absolutely wonderful global travel group. And I am honored to be with you ladies today. Thank you so much for having me.
We're honored to have you. Thank you all for sharing a little bit more. And as we kick off our panel here, I would love to hear more from each of you about your individual journeys with healing, with mourning, and how travel has impacted your lives as it relates to those experiences, and also why you've chosen to speak about travel in this context. And Alicia, maybe you can kick us off.
Yeah, of course. I think, travel has always been an important thing in my life, right? It started with just an interest, and then it became a lot of work travel. And I just love traveling. My sisters and I, we traveled to a lot of different countries together. And it was just always something that it's a joy. It's finding new communities, finding new cultures. And that was really, really great. But I think when my sister Maria, who had passed away from breast cancer, we traveled together in, after she was diagnosed. I got married and I had my bachelorette party in Colombia. And that was one of our last trips together. And she made it. And just seeing how happy it made her. And at first we were like, no, you need to stay at home. You're going through treatment. Because as somebody who doesn't have breast cancer, you don't know what to say to someone going through that. You think that if they move a little bit, something's going to happen. If they're away from their doctors, you just don't know everything. And I think seeing her in that element and being so happy and joyful, that made, us happy. But then, and after she was diagnosed, right after, she actually, when she was awaiting results from her biopsy, she went on a flight to Trinidad and Tobago. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, look, if something's going to happen, it's not happening tomorrow. I already have this ticket. And that really inspired me in the sense of, life is really too short. I was doing travel before because I was genuinely interested in it. But then it's like, make it meaningful. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. Enjoy the time, because some people can't. And it's not just, those with breast cancer. There's so many different reasons why other people can't travel. So I think I had a deeper appreciation for it. But then when she passed away, I don't want to say it's, hey, you need to escape from something, but everybody mourns differently. You may not cry at someone's funeral. You may not cry, a month, but then her birthday was on the 25th, and I listened to a voicemail and that I had heard her voice, and that's what really got to me, right? But when I'm away and I'm traveling and I'm thinking of her, I'm thinking about all the memories we had together. I'm going to Paris tomorrow, and one of our very first trips was to Paris together. And just thinking about that person, it really helps with your healing journey. And I think sometimes people think maybe you're trying to escape, but it's not an escape. I think traveling is a form of healing, and there's complete strangers that can give you comfort more than your own family can at sometimes, because everybody always wants to make you feel good. And I think strangers, it's not about that. It's about, we're all going through different things in life, and you can tell a complete stranger your whole life story. So I just think traveling has really helped me in the sense of healing, because it helps with the memories you have of that person, but then it helps start new memories, and it gets away from that everyday life. Sometimes it's suffocating to always have to think about that person who you've lost, going to their home, going here, doing this. So I think just having an escape and having a clear mind, that's what travel does for me, has really, really helped in that mourning process and healing process.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Lisa, would you like to share some more of your story and your healing journey next?
Yeah, so I was traveling maybe like once a year. And I have well, they're 20-year-olds now. I was raising my cousins. So at the time I was diagnosed, they were 14, 15, and 16. So, travel, because I was raising kids, wasn't a lot. But I did what your sister did. I was diagnosed like right before chemo. I went downtown and stayed downtown for the weekend. Right before surgery, no, right after surgery, I went to Florida. So like everything was, not an escape, but I was still working full time. It was a way to kind of just get away and process. And once I started the blog, once I finished treatment, I went to Australia for a month. And that's when the healing really started, because when you're going through treatment, you're kind of just in survival mode. And then once I went there, I was able to really process everything that happened. And then it just went from there. It just really became part of the healing to be able to get away and kind of feel like myself again, because you're so changed from the experience, and just process really what happened. And traveling changed because I was tired more. That was kind of hard to get used to, because I just wasn't the same person, but it was still just a way to just feel alive and to feel like myself again. And that's why I just love to travel.
That's really powerful. Thank you, Visa. Dee, would you please share your story and experience?
Yes, absolutely. For me, my first travel was actually in the 80s. My sister-in-law at that time, she called me to tell me that we could go to the Bahamas. I had never been, out of the country. And she says, Dee, we can go to the Bahamas, but the only thing is we need $50 for a deposit. Well, you can imagine what that deposit is today. And I actually, I was so excited to go on this trip because I've never been before. I took every bill money I had and I gave her that $50. And little did I know at that time that trip in the 80s to the Bahamas was going to be something that was going to help me when I heard those horrible words that you have breast cancer. I was actually in Mexico on vacation when I did receive my phone call that I had breast cancer. I had actually had my mammograms, which I always get them in December to end one year and start a new year anew. And at the time, I worked in a school system. So during our break, I would go on vacation. Um, from that point, I realized how important travel is. It doesn't, sometimes it's not always necessary to go far, 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 but sometimes just taking a day trip just to heal. And for me, there's nothing unusual for me to get up on a Saturday morning. And this has honestly only happened after I battled breast cancer. I have gotten up on a Saturday morning, going to the market to pick up detergent to do house cleaning for Saturday. And the next thing I know, I'm an hour and away from home, somewhere near the water. And one of my favorite spots that's close to home is Solomon's Island. Those places near the water, it soothes my soul. And I never paid it any attention until I was diagnosed with cancer. So traveling is important to me now. There's a budget that is simply a travel budget. And sometimes, yes, I may take a travel and know, okay, you're going to eat peanut butter and jelly for a week. But guess what? It's worth it. It is worth it. So traveling as a cancer survivor, battling cancer, it truly played a big part in my healing, going through an aggressive form of breast cancer.
Thank you so much. I love how you've sort of identified travel as more of a mindset. I'm a big believer in you don't have to leave your city or even really your backyard to travel. It's more of, what it does for you and how you think about it and experience it in your own body and your own mind. Thank you all for sharing. So we know that while cancer can impact everyone, it does not affect all people equally. As I mentioned in the beginning of our session tonight, the racial disparities that Black women face are unconscionably stark, with greater obstacles to cancer prevention, detection, treatment, and survival that Black women face. Can each of you speak a little bit more to this reality and to the important work that you're each doing to combat this? And Alicia, I would love if you could start us off with your work with Fight Through Flights.
Yes, of course. And I think, just listening to Bisa and Dee, I think it really, really hones into the work that we're doing, but exactly the reasons why they're so important and the mindset of where they're coming from. I think, and I'll talk about what Fight Through Flights does in a second, but sometimes you have to, I know if it's exhausting for me, it's exhausting for those advocates and breast cancer survivors who have to show that racial disparities exist, right? That there is this huge gap when it comes to Black women dealing with breast cancer. And a lot of people, I don't want to say don't want to address it, but they're saying well, why should we focus on this? We're not making this up. There's research being done. This is such an important issue, and it's not a matter of something like all lives matter. They do, but you have to check on where these racial disparities are coming from, what's the research being done, and how can we address these issues. The reason why we created Fight Through Flights isn't just because my sister was a Black woman. It was because once she passed away, we started learning more about the racial disparities. The fact that she was more likely to die from more aggressive types of breast cancer, and she was more likely to die than any other racial group. Once you start having these different statistics coming in, you do need to have programs that are dedicated to this group of women. And I think it is really important to know that before I started Fight Through Flights, we understood that it wasn't that there wasn't research being done for Black women and there weren't advocates, because I love this community. There's so many amazing Black women doing so much advocacy, support groups, and research. But at the same time, we really just wanted to support these initiatives because Black women advocates need rest too. And it can't just always be in the, caregiver stage. My sister was a nurse. She was a mom. She was a sister. She was a cousin. And that was always the role that she would play. Are you in pain? No, I'm fine. I can go here with you. I can go to these recitals. I can do this. And we started Fight Through Flights because we wanted there to be a guilt-free experience. When I say I always focus on travel and things like that, I focus a lot on luxury travel. And I think that luxury travel, like even like what you were saying, Laura, after Dee spoke in terms of travel being a mindset, having luxury is a mindset as well. Not saying it has to be the most expensive thing, but being able to take care of yourself and being able to just be treated with no guilt, no regret. And so we started, my sister Esther and I started Fight Through Flights, which, like you said, it's giving these free wellness and travel experiences. But when we initially started, it was in the stage of, Fight Through Flights. We really just wanted everybody to hop on a plane and go somewhere, but we understood it was COVID was happening. We spoke to a lot of the women in the community and we're like, they can't go far. They have different commitments. So much is happening. So we started with different programs like Road Trip to Recovery and Staycation Serenity, which was Road Trip to Recovery. It's just you could choose somewhere that you wanted to drive to in driving distance from your home, and we planned a weekend stay that included a free hotel stay, all the meals were free, and different activities. So one of our recipients was a mother-daughter, and they both are breast cancer survivors. And this was their first time away together, and they chose to go to Charleston. They did, afternoon tea, they did massages and things like that. And that was a really great experience. But in those first two programs, we decided to also add 5 nutrition sessions, 5 personal training sessions, and 5 sessions with mental health therapists, because sometimes you don't have access to these resources. And in this instance, we set them all up with those professionals who are African American, because sometimes there's also a distrust when it comes to diagnosis and understanding things. So we wanted to really have that experience, but it doesn't mean not all women need that, right? So some of our recent programs, Room to Breathe, which last year when you all had donated your membership dues to that, that's what it directly went to. Room to Breathe is a program that provides a one-night stay anywhere you want in the United States, just to get away and breathe, whether you need to get away from your kids or maybe you need to go visit your granddaughter in her first year of college. It's just something that, don't feel guilty about it. Just take this. There's no catch. We tell them, like, I'm a party girl sometimes. Hey, if I want to use this to go to Vegas for a day, I'm going to use it. There's no, there's no restrictions. So these are some of the programs that we had. And when we first started off, we weren't getting as many applications. Am I back? Oh.
You're back. We lost you for just a moment, but I don't think we lost anything you were saying.
We built community and we got more applications. This last round of Room to Breathe, we're announcing in a few days, and we're looking at announcing initial 50 recipients, but we got over 140 applications. That's great because the word is out there, but it's still important to see that's over 140 Black women who clearly need this experience. So we're just doing more to get the word out and more to, fundraise and things like that. But that's what the organization's doing right now. We've been partnering with a lot of amazing organizations who are already doing the work. We had our first leadership retreat in Belize, and that was taking Black women who are leaders in this community so they could get rest and come together and build and plan. And they represented different organizations, a medical field and such like that. And now they're coming together to plan one of the next retreats, because again, this is something I did in honor of my sister, but we're not breast cancer survivors and we are not going to speak for women. And we wanted those who have been through it to speak for the community. So we're just here as, allies and advocates, and we just want this to be something that we can continue doing. But the disparities are there, and it's important to address them no matter, what's happening.
Absolutely. And you're such a testament to that. I think whenever we're faced with these systemic issues where the solution seems so complicated, it can be really overwhelming. And like, where do I even start? And you're a woman who was inspired by your sister and your experience, and now you've caused all of these ripples and so much positive impact that's continuing to spread. And that's just so empowering. Thank you for sharing. Visa, I would love to hear from you next.
You mentioned about the Tiger Lily Foundation, and that's one thing that they do with advocacy to try to bridge the gap between that disparity. And one reality is Black women were not part of the studies for the cancer drugs. I'm a triple negative, and with that type, at the time, it was no drug directly for my type of cancer. And although Black women are less likely to get breast cancer, we are more likely to die from it. And I think one of that is because we're not part of the studies. And also diagnosis. With my own story, I had my mammogram. I was 41. And so I just started getting mammograms. I didn't find a lump. It was just a routine mammogram. And I had the test in September, but I didn't have a biopsy till November. And I had an aggressive type of breast cancer. So it was spreading. It had already spread to my lymph nodes by the time I was diagnosed. A lot of doctors dropped the ball there. But that's where we show with the disparities. I've met a lot of women who, from biopsy, from the first mammogram to biopsy happens within a week. It really should not have taken that long. And I have health insurance, but, something there with the disparity, like I had to really be my own advocate. And that's one thing to stress for women. You have to be your own advocate. I had to keep calling and pushing for the tests to go forward. And that's the one thing we learned with Tiger Lily is to how to be your own advocate. And they also deal with a lot of women being diagnosed under 45. And that's another misconception is age. Some women are being diagnosed in their early 20s, but they're not being heard by the doctors because they're saying you're too young. And you're never too young. The youngest person can be diagnosed at 18. And like I said, I didn't feel a lump. And that's another misconception is how to diagnose it, how to even know. It's not always a lump either. That's another misconception. And I think women should learn about that as well. Just any irregularities from your breast, kind of knowing your body. And that's another thing, just to learn about your body and just anything. And if the one doctor doesn't believe you, just go to the next one. You need to get a second opinion. So that's all part of the advocacy to just empower women to be their own advocates and to be part of the studies. They did ask me once I finished treatment to be part of a study. And actually I didn't. But once I got part of Tiger Lily, I realized that it was important because as Black women ourselves, we don't always want to be involved in those studies, for distrust or whatever the reasons are. But I kind of wish, that I did so we can be upfront and be part of the conversation,
Yeah. I love your message about being your own advocate. That's so important for everyone, especially when we're in circles of women, from anything from this conversation that we're having to equitable pay and advocating for what is fair for you to be compensated. There's just so many studies and research that women are consistently undervaluing. And I think when you come into a medical setting, there's just so much more pressure. And I think that teaching women how to be their own advocates is such a powerful and important tool. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Dia, I'd love to hear from you next.
I so agree with being your own advocate because so many of us, when we're going through breast cancer, we're learning from each other. And that's why I've devoted my life as an advocate to work with women. Even in the airport yesterday, I make a habit of starting a conversation with anyone. And there is not a time, very seldom, that I'm starting a conversation that someone doesn't say to me, "Oh my goodness, my sister was just diagnosed." So I have calls sometimes all around the world that someone has given my name or my phone number. And I know that's where I'm being used at this time. When I first started with breast cancer, I had formed a foundation. It was titled Why You Breast Cancer Foundation. But it was just me, and I was just trying to do so much alone. But in that foundation, I wanted to take women on a road to recovery trip. And that trip was anywhere within 100-mile radius of your home. So I know this sounds crazy. I drove a Mercedes. I went to a sign shop, and the lady says, "Oh my God, your energy is just awesome. I'll make signs for you." So I placed the signs on my car, and I had an event, and there was a raffle of 3 women that we chose to go on a road to recovery trip. So I drove from my residence in Waldorf, Maryland, to Salisbury, Maryland, to the Eastern Shore, and I would pick a lady up, and the day was all about her. Started with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and this all came out of my pocket because I was so passionate. And one of the women happened to have been a Maryland State Trooper who had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And because her cancer was a very tough cancer, she couldn't go back into that type of work, and she became an attorney. But I didn't know that when we had the raffle. So you meet all types of women that are going through cancer. There is a disparity, but I really suggest, as Alicia mentioned, if you're not comfortable with that one physician, I will tell you, I'm known to say, do not treat me like I'm a number in the deli line. Keep it moving, because you are going to be with those doctors for a long time. I can recall when I first went into my oncologist, he had on a white lab coat with the pink ribbon. Now remember, I'm going in, I don't know if I'm dying, I don't know what's going on. And the first thing he said to me is, "You know, Doretha, I know a little about you, but let me tell you about me." And he pulled out his cell phone and showed me a picture of his wife and his kids. And he says, "I will treat you like I treat my wife." From that moment, I knew that I was in good hands. So I actually still today, 16 years later, I still drive back to New Jersey once a year to see that oncologist because I know he has my best interest. And what I loved about him, he says, "You know, Dee, I can't tell you how you're going to feel because I've never had breast cancer, but I do know how to treat you." So it starts with your doctors first, because this pink jacket that I am wearing today is from a dear friend that had battled breast cancer many times, and she lost her battle. And her beautiful daughter FedExed me this blazer because this happened to have been one of her favorite jackets. And as I'm speaking with you now, and we're talking about disparities, I can recall a conversation that she had needed a certain treatment, and she couldn't get the treatment because her insurance didn't take care of it. Can you imagine? You're going through something so devastating, and money is the issue. And then we talked about clinical trials. She's like, "Dee, I've battled cancer so many times. Not one doctor told me anything about clinical trials." So it all starts with us as women advocating for each other. So I spend a lot of my time working on or as an ambassador for a patient council board, because I am finding my experience is helping researchers. And so my goal is to share with as many women, especially Black women, all that I am learning being on this council board that will help so many women. And I'm hoping that there will be a day that we are not judged by our color of our skin, by our treatment, because you're looking at someone who went through a very aggressive form of cancer, a long time on chemotherapy, radiation, so many different forms of treatment. But my attitude was, I'm going to try it. You know, what do I have to lose? You know, that was my attitude. If it's going to help me live, I'm going to give it a try. And that's what I'd like to help other Black women to understand. There are a lot of treatments out here. We have to speak up for ourselves and spend time with others that have gone through the experience. And as you with your sister that has passed away, you know firsthand what she went through. And I think we need to spend more time as women traveling around to different organizations and share our stories, because there will be someone else that I am sure within the next week or so as I'm traveling that will ask, do you mind if my friend gives you a call? She needs someone to encourage her and to inspire her. So it's all, you know that old saying, it takes a village? That's exactly what it takes for all of us. And for those of us Black women that have dealt with either being a caregiver or going through cancer, we need to get our stories out there. And so I'm grateful to you for having us on this platform, because I'm sure there are some women that's in the audience today that have questions. And you have 3 ladies here that has either been a caretaker or have battled breast cancer in some shape or form. And it does change your life. I will never be the same Doretha that I was before breast cancer. Now, I don't care what you think about me. I will walk out of a job in a heartbeat, because I realize that life is precious. So for us, let's just continue to help each other and support one another, because sometimes women don't want to hear what you have to say. But I keep it moving, because I'm thinking, I'm not here to change your life. I'm here to help you. And that's what I plan to do for the rest of my life. So we do need some help with the Black disparities and drugs and different programs that, you know, I found that researchers are looking for people to share their story and to get paid doing that. Many women have no idea about these programs.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. I first want to affirm that you do have amazing energy. Can confirm that from the beginning of your story. I also want to thank you for sharing, and for a really perfect segue into the next question that I want to bring up here. And I do want to remind those tuning in live, if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to drop those into the comments section. But, you know, Bisa, we talked about the power of advocating for yourself and how important and necessary that is. And now you've brought into the conversation as well the importance of advocating for each other in these circles. So here in our wonderful community, what can we be doing right now to support women facing breast cancer? And I know we've started talking about things like story sharing, and I would love to hear from each of you any other efforts people can be making now to support women who are either supporting other women that are facing breast cancer or are facing breast cancer themselves.
I think the platform that you have now is absolutely wonderful. And maybe having more of these platforms, because, you know, breast cancer is not just in October. I think this is something that we need to do all year long. We have Women's Month, we have Black History Month. You know, there's just so much, you know, Halloween. I remember in my later age, I'm walking around with a pink tutu on. and this is what going through cancer, it just changes your whole perspective. So first of all, thank you for having this platform, but I'd love to see more work done just outside of October Breast Cancer Month. I think there should be something once a month, just for women to be able to congregate together. Because anything that I learn, trust me, I'm going to share what I learned. Because if I've gone through it and it has helped me, oh my God, I will give you everything. That's probably as a consultant, maybe why I don't make a lot of money. Because I give everything away, you know, because you know what? It comes back to me. Mm-hmm. So honestly, let's just not do it for October Breast Cancer Month. Make this a year-round avenue for us.
Yeah, I agree that Breast Cancer Awareness Month is every month. And and also I mentioned about being triple negative. March is Triple Negative Awareness Month. Um, and also sharing like fight or flights, sharing our information and sharing about the organizations. People in the community can do that. And just if you know someone, um, just sharing different organizations, because like when I was first diagnosed, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know any organizations, I didn't know any of those things. So if you do know someone, just share that organizations like Tiger Lily and fight sorry fight through flights exist, because I would have definitely applied if you were around in 2015.
But it still applies to you now, because that's the important part about it. Like Dee said, this is a new you. This is for
Right.
those who are going through treatments, and those survivors who you just it's always with you, and you deserve it. You deserve the luxury of continuing to travel.
You're right, but my platform was about my survivorship. That's the whole
Yeah.
reason why I started the blog. So you're right. um, well, we always joke, other cancer survivors, that we can use the cancer card for the rest of our lives. If something hurts, oh my God, I use that for my memory a lot. I have
Yes.
chemo brain.
And I've used that. I remember my doctor saying, Dee, for your life going forward, you can use that cancer card. Just use it like a credit card. You know when to use it and when not. But one last thing I would like to say with that is I didn't realize or appreciate the color of pink before I had breast cancer. Didn't have a thing pink in my closet at all. But something that touched me yesterday as I was on my flight, there was a young lady that had her hair dyed pink, and she had her dog in a little backpack, and the dog's hair she had dyed pink in honor of breast cancer, because her mother is a breast cancer survivor. And then I get on the next flight, and there's a gentleman with his pink cowboy shirt on with the ribbon. And I made a point to stop and say, thank you so much for wearing that. It means so much to me. And so those little things can start so much with making people feel good and feel happy, because he felt good. He had on this pink shirt, not realizing, that, well, this was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But he would have never in his wildest dream thought that some woman on a flight that he's never met in his life before is going to say, thank you so much for wearing that shirt. That means so much to me. So it's important. It's really important for us.
I just wanted to add one thing in terms of, what you all can do. I know this time around, a lot of people are doing corporate matching. It wasn't until I started this organization that a lot of my friends, and they're like, hey, my job is doing corporate matching. Like, can we donate and things like that? And a lot of people outside of the travel community are looking for ways to give back, but they don't know. So like Bisa and Dee said, if you could just share the word, get it out there, share these different organizations. Again, I could say it 100 times. I love this community. I don't think that I've learned that during this month, a lot of people want to help, but some people do want to profit. And you have to be able to choose those organizations and those allies wisely. And I genuinely want to say that this community has shown up so many times throughout the year. Like during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, giving your dues, that was amazing. As we weren't a big established organization, and we were looking, it went directly to these women being able to have these Room to Breathe program. And you guys just were like, hey, we want to do this. We didn't reach out to you. You all did the research and found us, and we're so, so grateful. And I remember like Beth and Marissa saying like, is there anything you need? Like, come to the summit, meet the other women. And I just really, really appreciate, because sometimes I know it's hard if you're not in a community or coming outside from being a Black woman, but I genuinely am grateful of how you guys have showed up and been allies for our organization and so many organizations, as time has gone on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. That means a lot. Thank you all. I think one more question that has come to my mind in listening to all of your stories and ideas of how we can support one another and how our community can support. I think, Alicia, at the beginning of our conversation, you kind of spoke to, in a way, a feeling of helplessness or just uncertainty, like you don't know exactly what to do when this is happening to somebody in your life. And I'm wondering if any of you, through your experiences, have any advice or strategies that you've used to build resilience and hold space during those really uncertain times and through that period when you can feel really helpless.
I think joining a support group. In the beginning, I didn't think I needed a support group. I'm going to do this, but that was one of the best things that happened to me, was that someone referred me to a support group where I was surrounded by women that had gone through what I was experiencing at that time. And I strongly suggest any woman that's going through breast cancer or any type of cancer is find a support group. You may go through several different support groups before you find the one that is a good fit for you. But being in a support group, you feel like you're not alone. And when you're going through cancer, sometimes you feel alone. And you have people that are helping you so much. But I would honestly say, get yourself into a support group and surround yourself by others that can share their treatment and their story. And I think that's going to help quite a bit.
Thank you.
Well, this is one thing I just want to suggest with people who know cancer survivors. But I believe in support groups as well. But one intimidating thing about it was I was the youngest one there, being, early 40s. But there were some in Chicago, which is not far from me, but traveling there was a little difficulty. But one thing that happened, once you finish treatment and what we've already mentioned, it doesn't end there. And I had a lot of friends say, well, you're done, you're fine. And you're not fine. And also seek therapy. One of the things they give you antidepressants, and I was like, no, I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to seek therapy. I'm fine. But just being strong enough to know that sometimes you do need help from people and to seek therapy. But I think that's support groups and just private therapy is important to have as well. But also, I guess I got 3 points, but also just never tell a cancer survivor, oh, you look fine. Just because the hair starts to grow back doesn't mean it just magically goes away.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to voice Rebecca's question in our chat. Rebecca's wondering, where do you start when you're looking for a support organization? They're looking for some support for a family member right now. Thanks for your question, Rebecca.
I would start in your community and spend some time just checking into your community to see if they have support groups. Often a hospital or a breast cancer center has a lot of support groups. And if there's anything that I can help you with, I'm so happy to share any support groups that have worked for me, or help you Google some. I'm here to help you in any way that I can.
I was also going to mention my oncologist. She can ask her oncologist, or they. I know you didn't say it was a female, but my oncologist told me about the young cancer survivor group. So that's one place to check with your oncologist, and at the hospital, because it was associated with the hospital. So they probably have support groups to recommend.
Thank you. All right. I want to, if there's any more questions that we can answer from anyone, please do feel free to chime in. I have one more question it's a little unscripted, but I would love to know from each of you. And I know this is a hard question. Do you have a favorite trip you've ever taken? And if that is too challenging, maybe if you have a trip planned or where the next place that you're planning to visit is.
Okay. Well, it's hard to find favorite, but I'm excited about my next trip. Unfortunately, it's not with Wanderful, but I'm going to Antarctica in March.
Amazing.
So,
That'll be fantastic.
yeah, I'm excited about that. But yeah, it's hard to pick a place. I just came back from Spain. I was there for a month, but I don't know. It's so many places to choose from. But
You've been to so many.
My favorites are always the Caribbean islands. It's something about the water there that just soothes my soul. But a trip that I really enjoyed was in Singapore. I was there to speak for a pharmaceutical company on a panelist, and being in a place that I had only dreamed about. You know, some of us, we write a list of places that we'd like to go. I would have never in my wildest dreams would have ever thought that I would have a chance to go to Singapore. I loved it because it was so clean, the most cleanest place I've ever been. And I just hope to continue to travel every opportunity that I can. It really has helped me get through cancer, and this energy, a lot of it comes from this travel. It really does.
It's hard for me to choose. I feel like every time I get asked this questions, my friends and family laugh saying like, you give a different answer every time you're asked that. So I can't say. I mean, recently, like 2 months ago, I was in Turkey and I went to like Bodrum and like stayed by the water and the Mediterranean coast, and I was just like, whoa, this is amazing. But I'm very excited because I'm going to Monaco in like a week and a half, just like a 2-day trip, and I'm excited to see what it's like. But yeah, I would never be able to truthfully answer that because I pretty much love everywhere. Just new experiences, no matter where you go. But I would say it seems like I'm having favorite cities rather than favorite countries. Like there's cities I want to go back to. But you could put me anywhere on a plane. I'm going.
I can relate to that. Oh, well, thank you all so much for sharing your stories and for this time. I will start to wrap us up here because we're coming up on time. I want to thank everyone who tuned in for this session tonight. And I've shared a few links in our chat for where you can go to learn more about and support the different organizations that we've discussed tonight. And I know Alicia had mentioned that every month we at Wanderful donate a portion of our member dues to a deserving organization. And this month we're benefiting an organization called Empower, which is a nonprofit that supports, connects, and empowers girls who have lost their mothers. And I will drop another link in the chat so you can learn more about what they're all about. But yes, we have a new beneficiary every single month, so stay tuned. You can follow us. All of our socials are at She's Wanderful. We would love to keep the conversation going there. And with that, I just want to offer one more massive thank you to the three of you for making this really important conversation possible and for just everything that you do. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
thanks.
Right. Thanks, everyone. Take good care, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.